Okay, so we've started to record. And first I share the screen just with the file shows the perceptions, the different perceptions that we came across in the Anguttara Nikaya. So we already did last week, we did the Kaye Asubha Sanya, that is the perception of the unattractive nature of the body. And today we'll be doing the Marana Sanya, the perception of death, also called Marana Sati, mindfulness of death. And the way I found sort of organize the mindfulness of death, and I base this, all of the themes here come basically from the Pali tradition, but I found many years ago when I was living in Kandy, in our library, we had a little book called The Tibetan Handbook of Mental Development or something like that by a Geshe from the Tibetan Library of Works and Archives in Dharamsala. And they had organized the themes used in the meditation on death in a very systematic way. So I adopted that system of organization, and maybe I've modified in some respects. And so we have three main themes, each of which is subdivided into three secondary themes. So the main themes are first that death is absolutely certain. The second is that the arrival of death is utterly uncertain, unpredictable, unforeseeable. And then the third main theme is that when death comes, we have to give up everything, to abandon everything. And then the secondary themes, I'm not going to enunciate them here, but I'll be developing them as we do the meditation. Okay, so you can take your meditation position, and it can be a somewhat relaxed position. It doesn't have to be as a rigorous position as you would adopt if you're doing mindfulness of breathing, since this is going to be a reflective contemplation in which we use thought not just for intellectual reflection, but as a way of reinforcing an idea on the mind. And when we reinforce that idea on the mind through repeated contemplation, then that idea or that theme starts to have a transformative impact on our life, our life. And so if there's anything that's going to have any idea that's going to have a transformative impact on our lives, it's the idea that our life comes to an end, that it has to come to an end. And we don't want to take this to develop a kind of morbid degree of sadness, fear, anxiety over the thought of death. But ideally, it should help us to sort of release our grip on everything to which we're attached and be able to let go. Let go of our attachment to pleasures, to, to the people that we're attached to, and even to our body itself. Okay, so we can settle in through a few rounds of mindful breathing and keep the eyes closed. Okay, and so now we are going to be developing the mindfulness of death, the meditation on death. And first, to encourage us, we bring to mind the statement by the Buddha that the meditation on death when developed and cultivated, is a great fruit and great benefit, that it culminates in the deathless, that it has the deathless, that is nibbana, nirvana, as its consummation, its fulfillment. So we begin by recollecting death, being mindful of death. And when we pursue that meditation deep, deeply enough, firmly enough, we arrive at the deathless, the state beyond birth and death. Okay, first, what we have to do is to eliminate, to overcome the sort of unconscious biased idea that we are immortal, that we're going to live forever. And so what we have to do is convince ourselves that death is absolutely certain, completely unavoidable, inevitable, inescapable. In other words, we have to develop a clear, convincing perception, each of us, that I myself will die, that I cannot escape death, that death is written into the very nature of my existence. And to do this, we have three supporting ideas, three secondary themes. First, we reflect that everyone who has ever lived in the past, who has preceded us, has died. Maybe for some of you, your parents are still alive. Maybe if a few of you are really relatively young, your grandparents are still alive. But you could think your great grandparents, your great great grandparents, the generations before them, the generation before them, the generation before them, before them, before them, going back into the distant past. They have all died. So how is it possible that I myself won't die? From this, I know that I too one day will die. And we could think also of all of the great emperors of the past, whether the Roman Empire, the Byzantium Empire, the great empires of India, of China, the Egyptian pharaohs, so powerful, so mighty, all of those great emperors have died. And then we could think of all, so the power, military power, political power, is no guarantee against death. And wealth, all the millionaires and billionaires of previous generations have all died. So I too, with no political power, no material wealth, or little material wealth, I too must die. And then one could think even the fully enlightened Buddhas, or the fully enlightened Buddha and the great Arahant disciples of the past, they too have died. So I too must die. And so just dwell on this thought in your own way that everyone in the past has died. So I too, at some point, inevitably must die. Okay, the second subordinate theme, to remind ourselves that death is absolutely certain, is that death comes along with birth. In Pali, we have a verse, Upattiya sahe vedang maranam agatung sada maranataya okasang vadako via asati. Together with birth, death also comes along. It's just like a, this is a little scary, a little bit like a murderer with a drawn sword seeking the opportunity to strike. And so we say, he died of this cause, she died from that cause, and so on and so on. But the very fact that we are born, from the moment of birth, we are we already have death trailing us just like our shadow. So death comes along together with birth. So you dwell on that theme. The suttas say for those who are born, there is no other final destiny but death. Okay, the third secondary theme is that every moment we are moving closer to death. We could say that every year brings us closer to death. No, not every year. Every month brings us closer to death. No, not every month. Every day is bringing us closer and closer to death. Not every day, every hour, every minute, every second, every heartbeat is bringing us closer and closer to death. It's like when the sun rises in the east, we don't see it moving across the sky. But if we see the sun rise at 6 a.m., then we look at the sky at 8 a.m., we see that the sun has moved. Then when we look at the sky at noon, we see the sun has moved still more. At 4 p.m., the sun is about 3/4 of the way towards the western horizon. 6 p.m., it's about to set. And so we know that every second the sun has been moving across the sky. In the same way, every second our life is bringing us ever closer to death. Okay, turn this theme over in your mind, and you could elaborate in your own way. Use your creative powers of reflection. Okay, so through the first phase of this meditation, we become convinced that death, my death, is absolutely certain. And I know it's absolutely certain because I could see that everyone who has preceded me in the past, even the powerful, the wealthy, the famous, the spiritually enlightened, all of them have died. And I know that if I reflect that death comes along together with birth, once I'm born, death is right there like a shadow following me wherever I go, just waiting for the opportunity to strike. And then third, every moment, every second, I'm moving ever closer to death, to my own death. So in this way, I know death is absolutely certain, absolutely inevitable, inescapable, unavoidable. The plain fact is that I must die. I will die. Yeah, initially, these reflections could bring up a bit of anxiety or worry, but when you work with it over time, it brings a great sense of release, of freedom, of ease. Okay, now we come the second main theme. The arrival of death is utterly uncertain, unpredictable, unforeseeable. And again, there are three secondary aspects to this. First, the arrival of death is uncertain with regard to time. I have no idea what age I will be when I die. If I'm in my 20s, I can't say, okay, I'm in my 20s. I have 60, 70 more years ahead of me. Similarly, if I'm in my 30s, 40s, if I'm in my 70s, I can't be guaranteed that I'll reach my 80s or 90s. I can't be certain each day. I can't be certain today that I'll make it through, that this isn't my last day, or that tomorrow won't be my last day, or next week. We just don't know. I could, it seems I might be in perfect health, but then something unexpected happens and I'm gone. So death is uncertain with regard to time. Again, reflect on this on your own. Okay, the second theme is that the arrival of death is uncertain with regard to place. We might think I'm safe and secure in my home, but death can strike when we're at home. It could happen if I'm traveling to some other country. I might be in maybe in Europe or visiting India or China or Taiwan. Death strikes there. It can be just when I'm walking out on the street, an automobile runs over me, or I get a heart attack and drop in the street. I could die in the hospital or at home, anywhere. We have no idea where we will be when death arrives. Again, turn that thought over in the mind. And then the third sub-secondary theme here is that the arrival of death is absolutely uncertain with regard to the cause of death. There are so many different causes of death. Could be a heart attack, could be a stroke, could be some form of cancer, could be automobile accident. I might be a victim of gun violence, so rampant in this country, in the US. So many causes of death, and I have no idea what the cause of my own death will be. And so do a little reflection on this theme on your own. Okay, and so we know that now that death is absolutely certain, but the arrival of death is utterly uncertain, and it's uncertain with regard to time. We don't know when death will strike. It's uncertain in regard to place. We don't know where we will be when death will arrive. And it's uncertain with regard to the cause. We don't know what the cause of our death will be. Okay, then we come to the third theme, that when death comes, we have to abandon everything. We move on, leaving behind everything. And again, this has three secondary aspects. The first, when death comes, we must leave behind all of our wealth and possessions. If you're a millionaire or a billionaire, you have to leave behind your millions or billions. If you're just getting by from day to day, you have to leave behind what little wealth you have. All the possessions, including name, title, honors, position, chairman of this, president of that, venerable this, most venerable that. All of these, all status, wealth, possessions, title, home, car, jewelry, everything must be left behind. Can't bring any of it along. And as we go through this, in your mind, you drop the attachment to it now. This is the way of breaking the attachment, breaking the attachment, breaking the attachment right now, not when you die, but right now. So we have to abandon all wealth, possessions, including status, titles, position, and so forth. The second subordinate theme. When death comes, we must leave behind all of our loved ones. So the husband must leave behind the wife. Wife has to leave behind the husband. Parents will have to leave behind the children. If the children go first, they have to leave behind their parents. You have to leave behind all of your friends. If you're a teacher, you have to leave behind your students. If you're a student, you have to leave behind your teacher and fellow students. So all who are dear and beloved, when death comes, you have to say bye-bye to all of them. Okay, turn that over in the mind. And again, use the theme to help you let go of the attachment. It doesn't mean that you let go of the persons themselves. You still can cherish the relationship, but you loosen the grip of that relationship. And also you consider that if you go on living, your loved ones can predecease you, can die before you. And in that case, too, you have to say goodbye to them, permanent goodbye. Okay, the third sub-theme here is when death comes, we have to abandon our physical bodies, this body that we cherish and cling to as being mine, my body, the basis for our identity, and to give up the personal identities built upon identification with this body, a particular name, and even the personalities based on this body. Again, dwell on that thought a little and use it to let go of the attachment to this body. The body might be cremated, turning to just bones and ashes, or buried and gradually decay over time. But when death comes, we have to leave behind the body. We can't go along with this body. Okay, so to review the third theme, when death comes, we have to abandon everything. We have to abandon all wealth, possessions, status, titles, position. We have to leave behind all of our loved ones, all who are dear and cherished by us. And when death comes, we have to leave behind this physical body and our personal identities built up around the body. And then the fourth main theme, which doesn't have subdivisions, is when we pass on, when death comes, the only thing we take along with us is our karma. That is the imprints of our good and bad deeds, and also the traits of character that we have developed in the course of our life, or we say our dispositions, habit formations, interests, inclinations, and so on. So that bundle of dispositions, together with the karmic formations, that is what follows us from this life to the next life. So again, reflect on this theme. And we use this as an incentive to try to abandon the bad dispositions, the bad habits, and develop good qualities, good dispositions, to develop the virtuous qualities, so that they will continue along to the next life. Okay, I thought maybe what we could do is have a few minutes left. If there's any questions, practical questions that come out of this meditation, then please feel welcome to ask them using the hand device, the hand symbol. Okay, I see Gita, you can unmute.
Yes, Bhante, I have a question that's very, very important. That's going to affect all of us. One of the main things that Buddha has said is so that none of us go to hell, is not to harm our living parents. Like, a lot of people sometimes they go on life support systems, and the doctors don't want to make the decision, and they come back to the family.
Yeah.
Now, I'm thinking us personally, like each of us, can we not give a written consent that we should not be hooked to any kind of life support system, nor resuscitation, saying that this is our wish, that we wish to pass away a natural death,
Yeah.
Without any support? Can we do that? That
Yes.
way we're not putting the onus on our children or our loved ones to make that decision, because that's a Mahaprajika breaking of a rule. But if we take that into our own hands and just leave instruction to the medical team that we want to pass away peacefully without resuscitation or any hooking up to any machine, can we do that?
Definitely, definitely. In fact, I advise everybody to do that.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly that. Because
Yeah.
I spoke to some medical professionals and I asked them, and they said the only way you can avoid that, the hell realm, like in the sense of in Buddhism, in a Buddhist perspective,
Yeah.
that we can advise the medical team who's looking after us at the time of our own death,
Yeah.
to do that. Because with my mom, I had power of attorney for her health and well-being.
Yeah.
Fortunately, she passed away very peacefully, and the
Yeah.
Buddhist priest came, and I was able to, it was fine. It was perfect. But I'm thinking about all the other people that are here, right?
Yeah.
If he can do this, then that would be amazing, Bhante.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. One should do that.
Yeah, like a living will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone's just, Mark was saying, yeah. Thanks, Bhante. That's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. But I just want to get sort of questions about the practice of this particular meditation rather than those are like ethical questions that arise out of death. Okay, so we have En Choi.
Yes, Bhante, thank you so much.
Yeah.
This is Namki Choi,
Namki,
and
okay.
I understand the this type of meditation is to accept death and be peace with that.
Yeah,
Most of us are really afraid of death, the
yeah,
fear of death.
yeah.
So how do we handle the fear of death when we are accepting death at
I
the
think,
same time?
yeah, I think through regular practice of this meditation, it helps one to overcome the fear of death. Because the fear of death arises, I would say, because we don't consciously entertain the fact that we're going to die. So it's something that we sort of push out of the range of awareness. And so then when there's any idea of that death, that we're going to die, when that idea comes up, then we get frightened or terrified. But if we go through this meditation as a regular practice, then we actually sort of mentally rehearse and sort of mentally, yeah, rehearse our own death and see everything that we're going to go through at the time of death, or at least get some idea what we'll go through. And then we sort of train ourselves to overcome that fear.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, this is something I forgot to do. I should have. Yeah. What I usually do after doing this meditation, when coming to the end, is to then turn the mind to the three jewels as Buddhists, just very briefly, just for thinking, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha, and then just bring the three jewels to mind just for about a minute. And then that sort of helps one to overcome that fear of death. Okay. Next question, Chin Chin.
Thank you, Bante. I just wanted to ask, as a single parent with a teenager, when I was doing this death meditation, when it comes to like leaving your loved ones, obviously I do get a bit emotional.
Yeah,
How do I detach? Because it's difficult to detach with your loved ones, especially your child.
yeah, yeah,
So what I did was I think about like detaching by reducing expectation and cherish and appreciate life as it is. I don't know whether you have any other suggestion.
yeah. There are many different ways in which one could deal with that particular situation. But I think if one goes through this process of reflecting on the third theme, that you must, the second part of the third theme, that you have to leave behind all one's loved ones. When one does this regularly, then it helps to reduce that attachment, and um, so that when the time comes to leave them, then you can leave them peacefully. But while you're alive, then you should do whatever is necessary to provide for the well-being of those for whom you're responsible. It doesn't mean that you then just completely neglect them and just think, since I'm going to leave them at death, then I have to leave them without any concern in this life. But you do whatever you can to secure their well-being in this life. And then when death comes, you know that you've done what's necessary, and now you can say goodbye peacefully. And also,
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
it's also helpful to think that if you have a good, say, affinity or karmic connection with the loved one, that it's likely you're going to meet again in future lives. Like we see this in the story about the Buddha's past lives, how he had those who became his wife Yasodhara, his great disciples. They were all connected through many past lives. Okay, I have to move a little quickly because we're coming to the end. Okay,
Thank you, Bante.
Tom Cleary.
Thank you, Bhante. Quick question, please. This is very helpful. I'm not sure if I could do it on my own. I'm wondering if there's a tape or a narrative I could listen to, perhaps, that would, if I just sat and passively listened to, perhaps I would be better able to absorb these.
Yeah, I've recorded this, and I'm going to send the recording over when the class is over. I'll send the recording over to our tech person, and then he'll put it up on the Baus YouTube channel. So
Okay,
you'll be able to find it. It's the Baus Zhuangyan Monastery YouTube channel.
thank you, Bante.
Okay, Rucky,
Yes, Bante, I was wondering that is that our last thoughts that influence our next life the most, or the merits and the goodness that we have attained throughout our practice?
yeah, my belief is that it's probably our habitual thought formations that plays the dominant role in influencing the form of rebirth. It's sometimes possible that the thought that towards the end of the life one has a different kind of thought from one's usual habitual thinking, and that could take on the role of generating rebirth. But in most cases, my supposition is that it's the habitual thought formations or mental formations that govern the rebirth process.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, this will be the last question I could take. This is from, is it pronounced Tet?
That's correct, Bante. Thank you,
Okay.
Bante. My question is when we contemplate on death, doing this like Marananusati, what if we start to see shapes and forms like, my body decaying, I have this mental image, and then I get distracted? How shall I get back my concentration to the death meditation?
Try to drop those images that appear, unless they're helping. It could be that they're helping to fortify the meditation. In that case, you could allow them to continue. But if it's becoming a distraction, just try to drop them. If they become really frightening images, then I say stop the meditation
Thank
for
you,
that
Bante.
period, and then take it up at some other time. And and then don't do it too heavily, but just a sort of light reflection on these themes. Okay, we're going to have to end now because
Thank you,
I'll have to
Bante.
go for the meal. So let us end with the sharing of the merits. I'll see if I could post this scheme of contemplations along with the video. Actually, it will appear with the video. Okay, so we'll end with the sharing of the merits. And again, we could give special attention to the earthquake survivors from the Turkish Syrian earthquake and to those who have passed away, offering our merits to them. But first, we share the merits with the Devas and Nagas. Akasata Chabumata Deva Naga Mahedika Punyanta Nganamoditva Chirangra Kantu Sasanang Chirangra Kantu Desanang Chirangra Kantu Mang Parang Dukkha Patachani Dukkha Baya Patachani Baya Soka Patachani Soka Unto Sabepi Panino. May those in suffering be free from suffering. May those in fear be free from fear. May those in sorrow be free from sorrow. May all living beings also be thus. And I should add just one word. I should also add, if you have, maybe call it a depressive temperament, a maybe you're inclined habitually to have a rather grim perspective on life, or you're beset by anxiety and fear, maybe it's not so good to do this meditation. This meditation is good as an antidote if you go through life sort of blissfully ignorant or oblivious to the fact of our mortality, then it's a good antidote. But if you're disposed towards depression, dejection, anxiety, and so on, I say use an uplifting meditation, which we'll try to get in some later classes. like recollection of the Buddha, recollection of the Dhamma, or the mudita, the meditation on joy. Okay, we can
So sadhu,
end with
sadhu,
3
sadhu.
bows to the Buddha.
Three bows to the Buddha.
One,
Thank you, Bhante.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
2.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
And a
Bhante.
bow to Bhante.
Thank you,
Okay,
And a
thank
bow
you.
to Bhante.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Be
Bhante.
well,
Be
Bhante.
safe, be
Thank you so
well.
much.
Take care of
Thank
your
you,
good health.
Bhante. Good
Okay.
health to
Thank
you.
you, Bhante.
Thank you,
Enjoy
Bhante.
the
Excellent
lunch.
book, Bhante.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Love your
Bhante.
book. Your book is excellent. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm loving it.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Every